They lied to you. Not with malice, perhaps, but with something far more dangerous. Simplicity wrapped in glitter, packaged as truth. They told you that success is a vision board away, that manifestation is a weekend workshop, that your dreams respond to affirmations like trained birds to a whistle. They promised you the world could bend to your thoughts if you just believed hard enough, if you just raised your vibration high enough, if you just wanted it badly enough. They sold you the highlight reel and called it the whole film. They showed you the harvest, but never the season of planting in darkness, hands buried in soil, faith being the only witness to your labor. They gave you formulas for magic, but forgot to mention the years of ordinary days that build extraordinary lives. The testimonials, the transformations, the before and afters, all real, perhaps, but stripped of context, divorced from the 10,000 hours of invisible work that preceded them. And so you tried, you visualized, you affirmed, you believed with everything in you. You made the boards, attended the seminars, bought the courses, repeated the mantras until your voice went hoarse. And when the universe didn't rearrange itself on your timeline, you wondered what was broken, the process or you. You blamed your faith for not being strong enough, your vibration for not being high enough, your worthiness for not being pure enough. The answer, though it might sting at first, will set you free. Neither. What was broken was the story they sold you. What was missing was the truth they conveniently left out. The truth that transformation isn't a transaction, that manifestation isn't a mechanism, that your life doesn't change because you mastered a technique. It changes because you became someone new. And becoming someone new has never been quick, easy, or comfortable. They sold you magic pills when what you needed was the map. They gave you shortcuts when what you needed was the strength to walk the long road. They promised you arrival when what you needed was the courage to begin the journey. And now, here you stand, at the threshold of a different kind of knowing. One that doesn't sparkle as brightly in a social media post but burns far truer in the darkness when you need it most. They built an empire on your hunger for speed. In a world of same-day delivery and instant streams, they packaged transformation the same way, quick and easy, painless. Manifest your soulmate by Friday. Attract abundance before breakfast. Rewire your subconscious while you sleep. The algorithm learned what you wanted to hear and fed you an endless stream of it. Overnight success stories, miraculous turnarounds, quantum leaps that required no ladder. It sounds like liberation, doesn't it? But it's actually a cage disguised as a shortcut. Because the promise of instant results doesn't just mislead you about timing, it robs you of the journey that builds the person capable of holding what they desire. The butterfly that's pulled from its cocoon too early never learns to fly. Its wings remain weak, unprepared for the weight of its own freedom. The bodybuilder who takes shortcuts never develops the stabilizer muscles that prevent injury when the weight gets heavy. You were taught to worship the destination while despising the path, to see patience as punishment rather than preparation, to treat discipline as the enemy of flow, when in truth, discipline is flow's deepest form. The river that carved the canyon didn't rush, it persisted. Day after day, year after year, century after century, the water moved with patient inevitability, and the stone had no choice but to yield. They told you to want it all now. They never told you that now was where you'd learn to become worthy of forever. That the waiting isn't wasted time. It's where character gets forged. That delay isn't denial, it's development. That the universe isn't withholding from you. It's building within you the capacity to steward what you've asked for without squandering it, sabotaging it, or running from it in terror when it finally arrives. Think about it. How many lottery winners go bankrupt? How many people who get their dream relationship before they've healed their wounds end up destroying it? How many instant successes collapse under scrutiny because the foundation was never built? The universe, in its infinite intelligence, knows something your impatience doesn't. The speed of arrival must match the depth of preparation, or the gift becomes a curse. The seduction of instant isn't just about wanting things faster. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of how growth works, how readiness develops, how transformation that lasts is always a process of becoming rather than simply acquiring. They sold you the acquiring, They hid the becoming, and that omission has cost you years of chasing illusions instead of building reality. They sold you toxic positivity wrapped in spiritual language. They told you to ignore your pain, to override your doubt, to pretend your way into a new reality. Good vibes only, they chanted, as if your human complexity could be silenced by a slogan, as if the full spectrum of your emotional experience was something to be ashamed of, suppressed, transcended through sheer force of will and relentless optimism. So you pasted on a smile while your soul was screaming. You affirmated yourself into exhaustion, declaring abundance while your bank account echoed emptiness, feeling like a fraud in your own skin. You were told that acknowledging struggle was inviting more of it, that speaking your fear was manifesting failure. You learned to hide your shadows, not just from others, but from yourself. You became a performer in your own life, constantly monitoring your thoughts for negativity, policing your emotions for anything that might lower your vibration. But here's what they didn't tell you. The lotus grows in mud. The diamond forms under pressure. The pearl begins as an irritant, an invasion, something the oyster must coat again and again with layers of nacre until beauty emerges from discomfort. Your darkness isn't the opposite of your light. It's the soil from which your light learns to rise. Denying your shadows doesn't make you spiritual. It makes you fragmented. And fragmented people don't manifest. They collapse under the weight of their own pretending. Real transformation doesn't demand that you bypass your humanity. It invites you to move through it with eyes open, to feel everything, to honor the full spectrum of what it means to be alive. Your tears don't lower your vibration, they cleanse you. Your doubt isn't weak faith, it's honest faith learning to stand. Your anger isn't a spiritual failure, it's information about boundaries that need to be set, truths that need to be spoken, old patterns that need to die. The spiritual teachers who actually changed the world didn't do it by pretending everything was perfect. They did it by staring directly into the darkness, their own and the world's, and choosing light anyway. Not light instead of darkness, but light because of it. Light in relationship with it. Light that knows intimacy with shadow and remains luminous anyway. That's the kind of transformation that lasts. That's the kind of manifestation that doesn't crumble when life gets hard. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to be constantly positive to be worthy of your dreams. You need to be whole. And wholeness includes everything. The mess, the doubt, the fear, the rage, the grief. All of it. When you stop fragmenting yourself to fit their narrow definition of high vibration, you'll discover something they never told you. Your full humanity is your greatest power. Your willingness to be real is what makes your manifestation magnetic. They talked endlessly about alignment but defined it all wrong. They made it sound like a feeling, a buzz, a high, a constant state of bliss. So you chased the feeling, became addicted to it, and mistook every uncomfortable moment as a sign you were out of alignment. They taught you that alignment meant everything flowing effortlessly, doors opening magically, life feeling easy and light and frictionless. But alignment isn't a feeling, it's a frequency. And sometimes, that frequency requires you to walk through fires that don't feel good but forge you into someone unbreakable. Alignment is showing up when it's boring. It's choosing integrity when no one's watching. It's doing the next right thing even when your emotions are screaming for distraction, for relief, for anything other than this present moment of discomfort. The universe doesn't respond to your wishes, it responds to your identity. Not the identity you claim in affirmations, but the one you prove through action when no one's applauding. Who are you at 3 a.m. when the doubts arrive? Who are you on day 487 of invisible progress? Who are you when the opportunity finally comes and every insecurity you thought you'd healed suddenly resurfaces with a vengeance? Alignment isn't about feeling ready. It's about being congruent. It's about closing the gap between who you say you are and who you actually are when life tests you. And the tests aren't punishment, they're verification. The universe checking. Are you really ready for what you're asking for? Can you hold it? Will you honor it? Will you rise to meet it? Or will you shrink back into old patterns the moment it gets real? Real alignment often feels like resistance at first, like you're pushing against the grain, swimming upstream, doing the harder thing when the easier option is right there, seducing you with its familiar comfort. But that resistance isn't evidence you're off path, It's evidence you're exactly on path, doing the thing your old self would never have done, choosing the future over the past, becoming overstaying. They sold you alignment as arrival, as if you'd reach it one day and stay there forever, floating in perpetual harmony. But alignment is a practice, not a destination. It's a daily choice, a moment-by-moment recalibration, a constant returning to center every time life knocks you off balance. And it will knock you off balance. The goal isn't to never fall, it's to know how to find your way back. They demonized discipline and worshipped freedom, as if the two were enemies. They told you that routine was a cage, that structure killed creativity, that true manifestation was effortless, flowing, free from all constraint. They taught you to romanticize chaos and call it surrender. They made discipline sound like punishment, like some Victorian relic incompatible with the new age of flow and ease and following your bliss. But watch a master pianist. Watch an Olympic athlete. Watch anyone who's achieved what you claim to want. Their freedom didn't come from the absence of discipline. It came from discipline so deeply integrated it became invisible. The jazz musician who improvises beautifully spent years mastering scales. The dancer who flows spent decades training her body to obey her vision. The writer who makes it look effortless has written a million words you'll never see. Discipline isn't the opposite of freedom. It's the price of it. Every boundary you set is a choice of what you're willing to protect. Every habit you build is a vote for the future you claim to want. Every time you choose the hard right over the easy wrong, you're not restricting yourself. You're liberating the version of you that's been waiting for you to get serious. They told you to go with the flow. They never told you that the most powerful rivers flow within banks, that water without direction becomes a swamp. Your discipline is your riverbank. It doesn't imprison your power. It focuses it into a force that can carve canyons. Without banks, water spreads thin, evaporates, goes nowhere. With them, it becomes unstoppable. Think about the creatives who have no structure. They talk endlessly about their projects but never finish them. The entrepreneurs who chase every shiny object, they're always starting, never building. The dreamers who wait for inspiration, they produce sporadically, if at all. Now think about the people who show up every day, whether they feel like it or not, who honor their commitments to themselves before anyone else, who have routines that support their vision. Those are the people whose dreams become real. Discipline isn't about being rigid or joyless. It's about loving your future self more than your present comfort. It's about integrity with your own word. It's about recognizing that every action is either building the life you want or building the life you're trying to leave. There's no neutral. Every choice is a brick. You're either building the prison or the palace. Discipline is simply the commitment to keep laying palace bricks, even on the days when prison bricks would be so much easier. They sanitized faith, made it comfortable, stripped it of its wild, irrational edge. They told you faith was believing things would work out. But real faith is planting seeds in winter. It's building the ark before the rain. It's acting on a promise only you can see while everyone around you sees delusion. It's Abraham leaving everything familiar for a land he'd never seen. It's Noah building a boat in the desert. It's every pioneer, every visionary, every person who changed their world by trusting what hadn't yet appeared. Real faith doesn't feel safe. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff with no proof the net will appear, and jumping anyway, not because you're certain, but because staying on the cliff would be betraying everything your soul came here to do. Faith is the opposite of having all the answers. It's moving forward with a question mark burned into your chest, trusting that the path reveals itself to those who walk it, that the bridge appears beneath the feet of those brave enough to step into thin air. They told you to wait for signs, to look for evidence, to make sure you were certain before you committed. But certainty is the luxury of the comfortable, and comfort is where dreams go to die. Faith acts before certainty arrives. It commits before the guarantee appears. It says yes to the invisible, and watches the visible rearrange itself in response. You want to manifest miracles? Start by doing things that only make sense if those miracles are already done. Live from the end not as a visualization exercise, but as a daily practice of embodied trust. The universe doesn't reward belief. It rewards those bold enough to act as if. Act as if you're already the person you're becoming. Make decisions from that identity. Invest in that future. Speak from that authority. Move from that certainty. This is where most people break. They want the evidence first, the proof, the safety net, the guarantee. But faith, by definition, exists in the absence of those things. If you can see it, you don't need faith. You need sight. Faith is for the invisible, the impossible, the not yet manifested. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's what you cling to when everything visible screams that you're wrong, that you're crazy, that you should give up and settle like everyone else. Here's the secret they don't want you to know. The people living the lives you admire all had a moment where they chose faith over sense, where they defied logic and listened to something deeper. They bet on themselves when no one else would. They moved forward when every rational voice said stop. They looked like fools until they didn't. And the transformation happened not because the universe rewarded their faith, but because their faith made them unstoppable. When you're no longer waiting for permission, for proof, for perfect conditions, you become a force of nature. And nature always wins. They never told you how lonely transformation would be. They showed you the community, the circles, the collective energy. But they didn't prepare you for the moment you'd have to walk alone. When your old friends don't recognize you anymore. When your family questions your choices. When the life you're building looks like madness to everyone who knew the person you used to be. There's a phase in every real transformation where you're not who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. You're between identities, between worlds, and it feels like exile. The old life no longer fits, but the new one hasn't fully formed. You're the awkward adolescent of your own evolution, and there's no shortcut through this wilderness. You can't go back, those doors have closed behind you, but you can't quite move forward yet. Those doors haven't fully opened. This loneliness isn't a sign you're doing it wrong. It's confirmation you're doing it right. Every butterfly that ever emerged from a cocoon did so alone. Every prophet, every pioneer, every person who changed their life in a way that mattered, walked through a valley where their faith was the only companion. This isn't isolation, it's incubation. And what's forming in you requires the silence they can't understand to speak the truth only you can hear. The people who belong in your new life can't find you while you're still camped out in your old one. Sometimes the universe clears the room so you have space to grow into who you're meant to be. It's not cruel, it's necessary. You can't become the oak while you're still trying to fit in the acorn shell. You can't become the butterfly while you're still identifying as the caterpillar. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to outgrow people you love. It hurts to watch relationships fade because you're no longer vibrating at the same frequency. It hurts to be misunderstood by people who knew the old you and can't comprehend the new you. But the alternative, shrinking yourself to maintain connections that no longer serve your growth, that's a death of a different kind. A slower, more insidious death. The death of your potential to maintain the comfort of familiarity. The truth is, you're not losing people. You're making space. Space for relationships that match who you're becoming. Space for connections built on your truth rather than your pretending. Space for love that sees you, really sees you, not the mask you wore to make others comfortable. And when those people arrive, and they will, you'll understand why the old connections had to fade. You'll see how impossible it would have been to build the new while clinging to the old. This lonely phase won't last forever, but while you're in it, honor it. Let it teach you self-reliance. Let it show you that you're enough, even when you're all you have. Let it prove that your vision doesn't require consensus, that your transformation doesn't need witnesses, that you're capable of walking through fire with nothing but your faith to light the way. That strength, the strength you develop in the lonely middle, that's what carries you through the rest of your life. They sold you the peak moments, the breakthroughs, the epiphanies, the quantum leaps. They filled your feed with before and afters, with dramatic transformations, with stories of overnight success. They made the ordinary days invisible, as if they didn't count, as if they weren't where everything that matters is actually built. They trained your eyes to look for the spectacular and miss the sacred ordinary where real power lives. But here's the truth they buried under the highlight reels. Consistency is the most underrated form of magic in the universe. Not the consistency of perfection, the consistency of return, showing up again after you failed, starting over after you fell, choosing your vision again on the day it feels pointless. That's where the real power lives. Not in the days when you're inspired, motivated, on fire, but in the days when you're tired, doubtful, ready to quit, and you show up anyway. Your big dreams aren't built in the moments of inspiration. They're built in the moments of decision, when discipline becomes your identity and commitment becomes your signature. When you show up on day 93 the same way you showed up on day 1, even though nothing has changed yet. When you honor your word to yourself more than your mood, your comfort, your excuses. When you keep going, not because you can see the finish line, but because you refuse to be someone who quits. The unsexy truth is this: small actions, repeated with integrity, compound into outcomes that look miraculous to people who weren't watching the daily inches. The writer who publishes the novel didn't do it in one inspired weekend. They did it in 1,000 ordinary mornings, one page at a time, when no one was paying attention. Your revolution will be built the same way, in the quiet, in the repetition, in the holy boredom of commitment that refuses to quit. They called it boring because consistency doesn't photograph well. It doesn't get likes. It doesn't create viral moments. Day 47 of showing up looks exactly like day 46 and day 48. There's no drama, no plot twist, no sudden transformation to post about, just you, doing the thing, again, and again, and again, until one day, and you won't even know exactly which day, it tips. The compound interest of your consistency reaches critical mass, and everything changes. But by then, the consistency itself has changed you so much that the external change almost feels irrelevant. This is what they don't teach. Consistency is character. Every time you follow through when you don't feel like it, you're voting for the identity you're claiming. Every time you choose your commitment over your convenience, you're proving to yourself and the universe that you're serious, that this isn't a hobby, that you're not playing, that you're willing to do what most people won't, which is why you'll have what most people don't. The people who succeed in the long run aren't the most talented, the most connected, or even the most brilliant. They're the most consistent. They're the ones who show up in the middle, in the boring stretch where nothing exciting is happening and all the initial enthusiasm has worn off. They're the ones who keep going when everyone else quits. And eventually, consistency becomes its own reward. The showing up becomes who you are. The discipline becomes freedom. The boring becomes sacred. And you realize the real miracle was never in the destination. It was in who you had to become to stay committed to the journey. So where does this leave you now that the veil has lifted? Now that you see the machinery behind the magic, the truth beneath the lies? You're standing at a crossroads. You can return to the comfortable illusions, the quick fixes, the pretty promises that keep you chasing without ever arriving. Or you can choose the harder, truer path, the one that demands everything and guarantees nothing except this: the person you become along the way. Real manifestation isn't about manipulating reality. It's about aligning so completely with your truth that reality has no choice but to reorganize around you. It's not about getting what you want. It's about becoming someone whose inner world is so coherent, so undivided, so rooted in integrity, that what they want and who they are become the same thing. When there's no gap between your values and your actions, between your vision and your daily choices, between who you say you are and who you prove yourself to be, that's when the universe stops testing you and starts supporting you. This path requires patience that looks like faith, discipline that looks like devotion, consistency that looks, from the outside, like nothing special, until one day, it looks like everything. It asks you to plant seeds you won't see bloom for seasons, to build in the dark, to trust the process more than the timeline, to value your becoming over your getting. It asks you to redefine success not as external achievement, but as internal congruence. Not as arriving at a destination, but as embodying a truth. The truth is, you already have everything you need. Not in some spiritual bypass way where you pretend scarcity isn't real, but in the deepest sense, where you recognize that the power to transform your life has always been yours. It was just buried under layers of lies about how transformation works. Now you know. Now you choose. Every moment is a choice. Will you build or will you wish? Will you become or will you pretend? Will you do the real work or will you keep shopping for shortcuts? And make no mistake, the real work is hard. It's unglamorous. It's invisible for long stretches. It requires you to show up when no one's watching, to persist when there's no evidence it's working, to believe when everyone else thinks you're deluded. It requires you to face your shadows, to feel your pain, to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. It requires you to be honest about where you are while remaining faithful to where you're going. But here's what they never told you about the real work. It's also joyful. Not in a constant bliss kind of way, but in a deep satisfaction kind of way. The joy of knowing you're not lying to yourself anymore. The joy of building something real, even if it's slower than you wanted. The joy of becoming someone you respect, someone you trust, someone who keeps their promises, especially the ones made to themselves. That joy is quiet, solid, unshakable. It doesn't need external validation because it comes from internal alignment. You're not here to manifest a perfect life. You're here to live a true one, and truth has always required more courage than comfort, more authenticity than pretense, more consistency than inspiration. The lies were easier to hear. The truth is harder to live. But the truth is also what will set you free. Free from the endless chase, free from the constant disappointment, free from the exhausting performance of pretending you're somewhere you're not. So this is your moment. The curtain has been pulled back. The emperor has no clothes. The promises were empty and the shortcuts were traps. But you're still here. Still standing. Still willing to begin again. This time with truth as your foundation instead of fantasy. That's the real miracle. Not that you can manifest whatever you want, but that you're willing to become whoever you need to be. Not that the universe will give you everything, but that you're ready to work for anything that matters. If this truth awakened something within you, don't stop here. Your transformation has only begun.